When a pope dies or resigns, the Catholic world falls silent. The bells toll differently. Flags are flown at half-mast, and one of the oldest and most mysterious institutions in human history begins to stir. The Vatican closes itself in prayer, and the eyes of the world turn to one of the Catholic Church's most secretive events, the Conclave. But what exactly happens behind the locked doors of the Sistine Chapel? Who are the men that decide the spiritual future of more than 1 billion faithful? And why is this entire process shrouded in such secrecy, symbolism, and tradition? The term conclave comes from the Latin conclave, meaning with a key. Literally, the cardinals are locked in, cut off from the outside world, until a new pope is chosen. No cell phones, no emails, no political interference, at least in theory. The selection is made through a secret ballot, where each cardinal writes the name of their chosen candidate on a slip of paper. But before that, there are prayers, discreet alliances, and lengthy discussions that will never be made public. Everything is wrapped in absolute silence. Historically, the conclave originated in the 13th century, after a deadlock lasting more than 2 years to elect a new pope. The city of Viterbo, in Italy, frustrated by the delay, literally locked the cardinals inside the election site, and even removed the building's roof to force them to reach a decision. Since then, the process has been formalized with ancient rituals, sacred oaths, and detailed rules. Upon entering the Sistine Chapel, the cardinals take a solemn vow to maintain absolute secrecy, under penalty of excommunication. But what few people know is that the conclave is also a stage for power plays, diplomacy, and even subtle rivalries. There is a delicate balance between conservative, reformist, moderate cardinals and representatives from different continents. The votes move like chess pieces, with each round revealing trends, rejections, and possibilities. And all of this takes place under the gaze of the images painted by Michelangelo, the eyes of the Last Judgment watching every decision. As the days go by inside the Sistine Chapel, tensions rise. With each vote, called a scrutinium, the cardinals place their ballots on the altar under the watchful eyes of their peers and of history itself. 3 scrutineers, chosen from among them, count the votes. If no candidate reaches a required 2/3 majority, the ballots are burned with substance that produces black smoke, the signal that a new pope has not yet been chosen. The crowd gathered in St. Peter's Square watches anxiously, with every plume of smoke that rises from the improvised chimney. The whole world holds its breath. The long-awaited white smoke has not yet appeared. During the conclave, the cardinals are forbidden from contacting the outside world. A strict surveillance system is put in place. Technicians and security experts ensure that no electronic signal enters or leaves. There are sweeps for bugs, signal blockers, and even physical inspections, all to preserve the integrity of the process. Meals are simple, prepared by staff who have also sworn to secrecy. They don't know what happens during the votes, but the weight of the moment is reflected in their eyes. Every dish served could be feeding the future spiritual leader of the church. Many wonder whether the cardinals already know who will be chosen before the conclave begins. The truth is that, despite speculation and personal preferences, the outcome almost always surprises. Sometimes, a lesser-known name emerges in the early ballots. A powerful speech, a humble gesture, or an act of reconciliation can shift the momentum. It is not uncommon for the chosen one to be a consensus figure, someone who does not divide but unites. In some cases, they say, even the cardinals feel that the final decision did not come from them, but from something higher. When at last a name receives a 2/3 majority, the silence of the chapel is broken. The dean of the college asks the chosen one, "Do you accept your canonical election as supreme pontiff?" If the cardinal replies, "Accepto," another question follows, "By what name shall you be called?" From that moment, he is no longer merely a cardinal. He becomes the pope. The ballots are then burned with substance that produces the long-awaited white smoke. The crowd outside erupts in joy. The bells of St. Peter's Basilica begin to ring. The world has just gained a new leader. But one final moment of mystery remains before the great revelation. The new pope is taken to a small room next to the Sistine Chapel, called the Room of Tears. There, he dons the white vestments for the first time, the the symbol of his new mission. The room gets its name from the deep emotion many feel in that instant. Tears of joy, of fear, of surrender. Some fall to their knees. Others weep in silence. It is the moment when that man's life changes forever. When he emerges, he will be presented to the world not as a man, but as the vicar of Christ. Throughout history, various conclaves have marked crucial moments for Catholic Church, and even for the fate of entire nations. Some lasted only days, while others stretched on for months. The longest of all took place in Viterbo, Italy, in 1268, and lasted nearly 3 years. The cardinals couldn't reach a consensus, and the local population's frustration grew so intense that civil authorities locked the cardinals in, reduced their food to bread and water, and even removed the building's roof to expose them to the elements. The extreme method worked. Shortly after, a pope was elected. Since then, the conclave has been formally regulated to ensure swifter decisions, though always under intense spiritual and human pressure. There have also been conclaves that brought unforgettable surprises. In 1978, after the sudden death of John Paul I, the Polish Cardinal Carol-Wojtyła was elected, becoming John Paul II, the first non-Italian pope in 455 years. His election was a geopolitical turning point. A pope from behind the Iron Curtain, during the height of the Cold War, sparked hope among those oppressed by communism and shook the political foundations of the world. It was also a symbol of renewal, youth, and charisma. Millions around the globe heard, for the first time, a pope who spoke with strength and closeness, crossing the boundaries of the Vatican with his commanding presence. The most recent conclave, in 2013, marked another historic moment. For the first time in over 6 centuries, a pope resigned. Benedict XVI stepped down from the chair of Peter due to health and age. As a result, the world witnessed a conclave triggered not by death, but by voluntary renunciation. The election of Jorge Mario Bergoglio as Pope Francis brought yet another break with tradition. He was the first Latin American pope, the first Jesuit, and the first to choose the name Francis, in honor of St. Francis of Assisi. The gesture symbolized a desire to return to simplicity, humility, and care for the poor, values that have defined his papacy from the start. Inside the conclave, votes are secret, but the choices echo for decades. The figure of the Pope is far from merely symbolic. He leads over 1 billion Catholics, influences moral and political decisions, and serves as a living bridge between heaven and earth for millions of believers. Each pope leaves his mark, some through encyclicals and reforms, others through acts of mercy or courageous confrontations. The conclave, therefore, is not just an election. It is a turning point. It is a moment when the pillars of the Church are repositioned to meet the challenges of a new era. And so, when the keys of St. Peter pass from one hand to another, it is not merely the beginning of a new pontificate. It is the dawn of a new era for the faith of billions. The conclave, at its core, is a moment of deep prayer, silence, and discernment. Inside, the cardinals are not merely choosing a man, but striving to hear the voice of God amid human voices. The world watches, many without understanding the details or the spiritual significance of the process. But for those who believe, the conclave is the echo of Christ's promise. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. Each white plume that rises above the Sistine Chapel is not just a sign of decision, but of hope. Hope that even in times of crisis, scandal, or modern challenges, faith can be renewed through a leader chosen in prayer. And that is why, since the earliest centuries, people have awaited with great expectation the simple phrase, Habemus Papam, we have a pope. In the end, the mystery of the conclave reminds us of something greater, that the Church is not merely an institution, but a living community, led by man, yes, but inspired by something that transcends human logic. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of the conclave. It is, above all, an act of faith.